All right, guys, we're back for day 2 of two-way tables. We're going to focus more on filling out our tables, identifying information, and then we're going to start asking questions about probability instead of just quantities. All right, let's jump into it. All right, so our setup for our question here is when the Titanic sank, out of the 2,201 passengers, some survived and some didn't. There were male passengers and female passengers, and I want you to take the information given to you in this example and go ahead and try and fill out your chart. And then when you're done, come back and say I did. So hit pause now, fill out our two-way table, and then come back and check your answers. All right, so in our chart, I took the information given to us and I wrote that down in black. So we know there were 2,201 passengers. We know there's a total of 1,731 males, and of them, only 367 survived. We know 344 females survived, and that's what's given to us from our example. The information in red is what I calculated by using my table. The first one I got was this 470. Now I know that my total has to add to be 2,201, and I know that there was 1,731 men. So if I subtract that from our total, then I get 470 female total. We also know that 367 males survived. So again, if I subtract that from the total amount of males, then I get 1,364 males that did not survive. We know that 344 females survived. So again, if I subtract that from the 470, I get the 126 females that died. And then for my last two numbers, I added my survived column together, 367 plus 344 to get the 711. And then the 1364 plus the 126 to get the 1490. The last thing we should always do, just to double check, is take our totals, the 711 and the 1490, make sure it adds to be 2,201, and also the 1731 and the 470, make sure it adds to be to 2,201. But again, that's how we fill out our table. Now let's go ahead and interpret some of this. All right, so we got a couple questions here we want to fill out from our table. I want you to go ahead and hit pause and then attempt to answer these, and then check back in to see how you did. Okay, so hit pause now. All right, so our first question we have here is, what do you notice? And for the most part, what I notice is a lot of people died. 1,490 out of the 2,201 people. Second question, how many female passengers were there? So we're looking for the total number of females, which means I go to my female row, go all the way over to the end, and that is the total amount of females that I had. How many people survived? Once again, total amount of people. So I go to my survived column, go down to the very bottom, and I know that 711 survived. Okay, now we have a combination of our two things. So we know that they are females and they lived. So I want to go down to my females, go over to the survived portion, and I have 344 of those. And then for my last one, how many males lived? So again, we know they are male, we know that they lived, so I have 367 of those. Okay, for our next two questions, we have a slightly different question. We want to know what percent of something happened. So for first question, what percent of passengers survived? In order to do this, we're going to go ahead and identify how many total passengers survived. So in this case, we know that there were 711 people that survived. And to turn this into percent, we're going to divide that by the total number of people, which is 2,201. And we get approximately 0.323. To turn that into a percent, we're going to multiply that by 100. And we get approximately 32.3% of the passengers actually survived. All right, our follow-up question, what percent of passengers were female? So again, we want to go to our total females here, which is 470. We're then going to divide that by the total number, 2,201, and we get approximately 0.214. To turn that into a percent, we're going to multiply by 100, which means we get 21.4%. So again, to find our percentage here, we're going to do what we had done before, where we identify the number, but then we divide it by the total amount of passengers. Let's go ahead and try this with a few more examples. All right, for these three questions, we now have to find the probability that something happened, and we have one more new term, the word given. So given means we are restricting the amount of people we're looking at. So given that the passenger was a male, that means automatically I'm just looking at the total males. So there are 1,731 males. The question then is, given they're male, what's the probability that they survived? So I want to know, of just the males, what's the chance that they survived? So I know there are 367 of them. So then my fraction is going to be 367 divided by 1731, which is approximately 0.212. So again, I want to reiterate, my bottom number is what is given. So given the person was a male, I know there's 1,731 males. What's the probability the person survived? Of those males, 367 of them actually survived. Let's look at our next question. So again, we have the word given. Given that the person died. Okay, so I'm just looking at the total amount of people that died. So there were 1,490 of them. That's going to be my denominator. Again, whatever is given to us, we put down as our denominator. So given they died, what's the probability that they were male? Okay, well, I know the person died. So from those who died, 1,364 of them were actually male. So that's going to be my numerator. And then when I divide that, I get approximately 0.915. One other difference here is we're asked to find the probability, so I don't have to multiply by 100. I only have to find multiply by 100 if I'm asked to find the percent. All right, for my last question here, again, we have another given. Given that the person survived, so I know the person survived, which means I'm only looking at those 711 people. Of the people who survived, what is the probability that they were female? So we know they survived. The amount of females that survived was 344. And if I divide those, I get approximately 0.483. And I don't have to multiply by 100 because I'm not finding my percent. All right, one last time just to kind of break this down. Whenever something is given, that automatically becomes your denominator. So given person was male, I know that there were a total of 1,731 male. Now I'm just looking in that row of those males, 367 of them actually survived. For my next one, I know the person died, so I have this column to work with. I know 1,490 people died in total. Of them, just those people who died, 1,364 were male, and that's why my fraction is what it is. All right, so just to reiterate one more time, our denominator is always what is given. Your numerator is whatever we want within that specific row or column based off of the certain criteria listed. All right, hopefully this makes sense. Go ahead and do your best with your homework tonight.